The Interstellar Military Academy of Careth Prime had never seen anything quite like the humans. They were soft-looking creatures, shorter than the Velthari, slower than the CRYNN, and nowhere near as physically imposing as the Gordak warrior caste. General Maktur of the Velthari High Command had made his opinion known on day one. Humans were a political concession, nothing more. The Galactic Coalition had insisted on integrating them into the joint training program. Fine. He would tolerate their presence. He would not respect it. Cadet Lily Chen did not care what General Maktur thought of her. She had spent 3 years training at the Mars Defense Initiative before earning her placement at Careth Prime. 3 years of zero-gravity combat drills, high-altitude pressure conditioning, and hand-to-hand courses taught by veterans who had survived actual planetary sieges. She was 22 years old, 5'4", and had once held a plank position for 4 hours on a bet. She was here to learn joint species military doctrine. She had not come to prove anything. But sometimes, things happen. It was the 3rd week of combined infantry drills when General Maktur made his inspection rounds. The Velthari general was enormous, nearly 8 feet tall, with layered exoskeletal plating across his shoulders and forearms, for upper limbs arranged in bilateral symmetry, and eyes like polished obsidian that missed nothing. His military record was legendary across 6 systems. He had crushed the CRYNN rebellion in under 4 months. He had personally led the siege of Dunvar Station. He had no patience for weakness. The cadets stood at attention in the training bay. Velthari, Gordak, 2 CRYNN exchange students, and 6 humans, as Maktur walked the line with his subordinate, Commander Reth, half a step behind. He stopped in front of Cadet John Mercer first. John was the tallest of the human cadets, broad-shouldered, with the quiet steadiness of someone who had grown up on a frontier colony. Maktur studied him the way a biologist studies a particularly unremarkable insect. "This one's vitals?" he asked Reth, not looking away from John. "Peak human physical classification, sir. Upper quartile for the species." Maktur made a sound low in his throat, not quite contempt, but close. He moved on. He stopped in front of Lily. She met his gaze without blinking. This, apparently, was the problem. Among the Velthari, sustained eye contact from a subordinate was a challenge. It was an instinctive thing, wired into their social hierarchy over tens of thousands of years. Maktur's plating shifted, the subtle equivalent of hackles rising. "You hold your eyes on me, little creature," he said, his translator rendering the words in flat, precise standard. "Do you know what that means, where I come from?" "With respect, General," Lily replied. "I am not from where you come from." The bay went quiet. Even the ventilation system seemed to hold its breath. Maktur turned fully toward her. He was so large that his shadow swallowed her completely. "You speak as though you have earned that tone." "I speak as a cadet of the Terran Defense Corps, sir. I was taught to maintain eye contact as a sign of attentiveness and respect. Then your teachers taught you wrong." He took a single step forward. "Among soldiers, you earn the right to look your superior in the eye. You have not earned that right." Lily said nothing. She held his gaze. It was, in retrospect, the moment Maktur decided to make an example. His right primary arm moved. Fast, even for a Velthari, the back of his plated hand swinging toward the side of her face. A strike. Not full force. A correction blow, the kind used in old Velthari field training to discipline cadets who showed insolence. It never connected. 5 seconds. That was all anyone who watched it could agree on afterward. In the first second, Lily's left arm came up, not to block, but to redirect. She caught his forearm at the wrist joint, her fingers finding the gap between plating segments where the flesh was softer. Pure anatomical knowledge, drilled into every Terran cadet who trained for multi-species combat. Know your opponent's biology before you know their tactics. In the second, she rotated. Not away from him. Into him, closing the distance, her body dropping beneath his center of mass. In the third second, her right hand joined the grip and she applied torque. Not brute force. She had none to spare against a Velthari general. Mechanical advantage. Joint leverage. The kind of technique that doesn't care how big you are, only whether your bones bend the wrong way when pressure is applied at exactly the right angle. In the fourth second, General Maktur made a sound. It was not a sound anyone in that bay had ever heard him make before. In the fifth second, Lily released him and stepped back to attention, hands at her sides, eyes forward. Maktar stood with his right primary wrist cradled against his chest. He had not fallen. She had not tried to take him down, only to stop the blow and deliver a message. But his plating had shifted dramatically, coloring in the Velthari equivalent of shock, his obsidian eyes wide and fixed on the small human in front of him. Commander Reth was completely still. Every cadet in the room, Velthari, Gordak, CRYNN, and human alike, was frozen. John let out a breath, so slowly it was nearly silent. Lily stood at attention and said, calmly, "I apologize for the physical contact, General. I acted on defensive reflex. It will not happen again unless necessary." The silence stretched out for a long moment. Then Maktar did something no one expected. He looked down at his wrist. He flexed it carefully. It wasn't broken. She had stopped well short of that. And he looked back at Lily Chun. His plating shifted again. Different colors this time. "What is your name, Cadet?" "Lily Chun, sir. Terran Defense Corps, Mars Division." "How did you know the pressure point?" "Xenoanatomy is mandatory at my home institution, sir. We study the skeletal and muscular structures of all allied species. The Velthari wrist joint was part of our third-year curriculum." Another silence. Maktar turned to Commander Reth. "Why do we not do this?" Reth blinked. "Sir, study our allies' anatomy. If a human cadet can use my own joint structure against me in under 5 seconds," he paused, looking at his wrist again with something that might have been genuine consideration, "then we are carrying a vulnerability we did not know we had." He looked back at Lily. Something had shifted in his expression, not warmth, exactly. Maktar was not built for warmth. But there was something there that hadn't been before. "You did not attempt to flee," he said. "No, sir. You did not beg or apologize in the moment." "No, sir. You neutralized the threat and returned to position." Lily said nothing. She was still standing at attention. Maktar was quiet for a long moment. Then he addressed the entire bay, his voice carrying to every corner. "The human cadet has demonstrated something today that I want all of you to remember. She did not match my strength. She did not attempt to. She used knowledge, positioning, and precision to neutralize an advantage I did not know I was offering her." He paused. "This is not a human trait. This is a soldier's trait. You will all take note." He turned back to Lily one last time. "Cadet Chun. Sir, tomorrow you will teach a session on Velthari joint anatomy to the combined infantry group." It was not a question. Lily blinked, the first break in her composure. "Sir, I am not asking." He turned to leave, then stopped. "And Cadet." He didn't look back. "You may hold your eyes where you like." He walked out of the bay. Commander Reth followed, shooting a look back at Lily that was equal parts disbelief and respect. The moment the door sealed behind them, every cadet in the room exhaled at once. John turned to Lily, who was still standing at attention, staring straight ahead. "Did that just—" "Don't," she said quietly. "I'm just saying. John, I need a minute." He nodded. He'd seen her hands. They were shaking, just slightly, now that there was no one watching. She had known, in the moment, exactly what she was doing. She had trained for exactly this. Her instructors had prepared her for exactly this scenario. A larger opponent, superior strength, a strike incoming. None of that made it easy. It had just made it possible. She breathed out slowly and let her hands still. Tomorrow, she would teach a room full of alien soldiers about their own bodies. Tonight, she was going to sit very quietly in her bunk and process the fact that she had just grabbed a war general's wrist in front of his entire command staff. Humanity, someone had once told her, doesn't win by being the strongest thing in the room. It wins by being the most prepared. She was starting to believe it.